Welcome to episode 5 of Taking a Break with Detroit Speed. Today we are at GearFX Driveline in Mooresville. They're the sister company of Detroit Speed, and they build all of our axle housings, center sections, and pretty much everything driveline. So we have Jeff Fuzzy Horton over here. Yes, his nickname is Fuzzy, and if you guys ever see him at an event, feel free to go up and ask him how he got it. He's always got some pretty interesting stories behind it. So pretty much, Fuzzy, what is GearFX? What do you guys do here?
Well, GearFX is a driveline company that was started about 2005 as CNR Racing South, and mainly catered to high-performance racing teams, specifically NASCAR and a little bit of drag race stuff and some other things. So I need to put my big boy voice on.
Yeah,
apparently.
Talk a little louder.
Yeah, so anyhow, we were CNR Racing South up until 2018.
Say 18.
18.
Yeah, 2018.
We'd been doing some work for Detroit Speed, and the opportunity came up for us to be sold, and Detroit Speed had a need, so thankfully Kyle came in and grabbed us up.
Yep.
And now we're starting to focus a little bit more on high-performance aftermarket. We still do a lot of racing stuff. We still do the gear and lease programs for NASCAR teams. We've got a lot of vintage stock car teams that run our stuff. We're also bringing in, Muncies and T10s and Tremec transmissions.
Yeah, just pretty much everything.
Right. Yeah, we've done a lot of Corvette rear gears and transmissions, even for C2 and C3, but we've also done it for C5 and C6 Corvettes. So we're just trying to expand our horizon a little bit and use our knowledge that we've gained for 15 years of doing high performance motorsports driveline products.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much, the purchase of CNR South, which is now GearFX, like Fuzzy mentioned, essentially that is, it's kind of like quality control for us in a sense. That way we can go ahead and, we know what is going on in this facility. We know how the axles are being manufactured. We know all the different processes. So we know that they're done right. And they're, you guys are 10 minutes from the shop, so they're very close. So if we ever need anything, we can bring it right over. And, these guys really do an awesome job of taking that motorsport knowledge that they have and bringing it to the street. And I know you guys are doing a ton of work, trying everything you can to make sure gears are quieter. So you don't have, a nice clanky, whiny gear in your street car. So, you guys are doing great things over here. And I think that the expansion of, doing everything, I saw you were working on the Oddy stuff as well.
Yeah.
Just anything you can to just take the motorsports knowledge, bring it to the street. And, you guys are doing a great job with
the
it.
processes and procedures that we've learned. A little, we know what to look for where things will tend to break in a higher horsepower application. So taking in the case of the MX-5, Miata stuff, there's certain areas that taking an OEM drivetrain component and trying to put more horsepower through it, there's going to be certain areas that are just inherently weak. So we try to address those areas and fix that before it ever goes out to the customer.
Perfect. I think, are we good over there, Dan?
I believe we are.
We're good? Okay, so what we're going to do now, Fuzzy's going to walk around to the other side of the table, and we'll turn on Dan's mic and his camera over there, and we'll start off some questions. So if you guys have any questions about GearFX, rear gears, transmissions, anything you have, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Let us know, and we'll talk about it. And we also have a few questions loaded up here, just general gear questions. So we'll have a lot of knowledge for you guys here today. So let's get to it.
All right, how's that working?
Here, we're going to get a sound check real quick.
Sound check.
Check 1 2 1 2 sound check.
Now that I'm done wrecking the laptop here.
We need more cowbell.
All right, we're good to go. Okay. So we got the thumbs up. We are good. So let's see. So we already discussed who is GearFX. So So Fuzzy kind of, went into detail of who's GearFX, how did they start, and the first thing we have here is let's talk about axle length measurement. When a customer calls in and they need a certain length axle, whether they're running our mini tubs or they're not running mini tubs, how do you determine the axle length? So what do you need to do?
Well, so in the case of Detroit Speed, for all of your housings, you have, I think, two widths. You got the stock width, and then you got the mini tub width. When we started doing the housings for Detroit Speed, in order to help GearFX get up to speed a little bit more, we did a housing sheet, custom sheet here that Alex has brought up. So that's in order for we want the customer to fill that out in order for us to make sure that we're not missing anything, because it's a fairly expensive part. It's a heavy part to ship.
No guesswork involved.
Right. It's a pain for everybody involved that if something's not right there. The one thing that we do need to address a little bit better is that when the customer's filling this out, they're measuring most likely off an existing housing, right?
Yeah, right.
So if that happens to be a 10 bolt or a 12 bolt, the pinion's going to be in a different spot. So the Detroit Speed housings, Detroit Speed likes to have everything on a forward 9-inch with a 1/2 inch offset.
Right.
And that's to give a little bit more room in the transmission tunnel area for 3.5 inch steel drive shaft for more horsepower, a little bit more room to run your exhaust, some different transmission options. So the forward 9-inch rear gear has a 15/16 pinion offset from the center of the housing there. So we want to try to scoot that to the middle to give everybody. I need to add onto the sheet so that people can put whether they want a 1/2 inch offset. So we're having the customer tell us, measure your stuff that's in there now, and tell us where you want things. We need to add in there that, hey, do you want a little bit of offset in this as well? So that's something that's on me to update sooner than later.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you guys do have any rear axle questions where you need one for your car, you want a custom width, or you're not sure what width you need, that resource is on the GearFX website if you go to the tech tab. So you guys can check that out, figure out what measurements they're looking for when it comes to purchasing an axle. So great little insight there, and thank you, Fuzzy, for going a little more in depth on it.
One little addition on that just popped into my micro brain.
Go for it.
When guys are doing a car, a lot of what's driving this with everybody is the look of the wheel and what wheels they're driving or using. I think it's highly recommended for a customer that's doing a build to have your wheels sorted out first.
Oh yeah.
And the stance you want on the car and what your backspace on the wheel is, and then drive that.
Yes, that's
drive
really
that
the right way
test
to do
making this. We've been involved in ones where it's been the opposite way, and now the guy can't get the wheels he wants.
Usually how it works. Yeah.
You want
Get the wheels you want, mock them up where you need them, then take your measurement for your axle length.
Yeah.
Get with Fuzzy, and he'll take care of you.
Yeah, we can go wheel to wheel. So if you got your car sitting at the stance you want, and you got your wheels in there, if you give us a wheel to wheel face measurement, tell us what brakes you're running, whether you're running nobody's probably going to be running drum brakes, but we can use 300 thou as a thickness between the wheel face and the axle flange. For most aftermarket rotor kits, the hat's that thick. So we can back everything in from there to help guide you on that.
And that's great too, because that's what most guys should be doing. Even in the Detroit Speed project shop, we purchase wheels first. That's the first thing we get, because we want to build the car around that. So having that option to do a wheel-to-wheel measurement, and then you guys just do all the math here, it takes a lot of stress away from the customer, and then you're less prone to having an error if the measurement is off. So I think that's perfect, and it's great that you guys do that. So another question that's come into our chat here, this one's from Sid. He wants to know, is there a range of gear ratios that tend to make more noise than others? What causes that? Are there different lubricants you can run to bring the noise down? So essentially, what makes a gear noisy? and what are some ways to make it less noisy?
Yes. Well, that's
Good
obviously, yeah, that's certainly a hot topic in the high performance aftermarket. So
Definitely.
with aftermarket Ford 9-inch ring and pinions, some of them are inherently noisier just because if it's a hunting or a non-hunting ratio. But gosh, I don't know how to even attack that. What site to come in and attack that on?
Well, I mean, I think you'd help customers because you kind of know from experience what ratios are a little louder than some.
Right.
Say some guy picks something.
We tend to have problems with 350.
Yeah, okay.
And within our NASCAR lease fleet ring and pinions, you can see behind us there, we've got anywhere from 250 to 350 Ford 9-inch ring and pinions that go through our lease fleet.
Yeah.
When those get mileage out for racing purposes, they're still good. They're still good for street. So if we know a guy's really sensitive on noise, we might suggest a 355 or a 364 or something like that to help pull back the noise.
Yep.
The REM surface finishing process helps with the noise a little bit. It also helps with the break-in process. And then we run every street gear that we build. We run it across our dyno, and it's not the full break-in. We just run it up, get a little bit of temp in it, and we're measuring the decibels in the room, and we're also measuring the decibels at the back of the housing. The reason we do that is so that we're sure that nothing's getting out of here that sounds like a howler monkey, right?
Right.
So, and there are times that we might have to put 2 or 3 ring and pinions in there, or we might have to raise or lower the pinion in there to get a particular. If a ring and pinion's close, we can adjust on it a little bit, and then more times than not, get it taken care of. If it doesn't, it's got to come out. Now, that's not an extra charge that we charge the customer. That's just something we do to ensure that our street gears aren't going to go out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned before, it's quality control. You're making sure that it's right before it leaves.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And you'd mentioned the REM polishing.
Yes.
You kind of want to touch on that for people that might not know what REM polishing is. And I have an image pulled up that gives you a look of the media that you use there as well.
So the REM isotropic surface finishing REM is the company that created it. Isotropic surface finishing, I believe the correct definition is it's a completely random vibratory process. But it uses we use 2 solutions while we're tumbling the parts in there. One is a cut solution. The media that you see is a ceramic media. It has no abrasive in it. So it goes through a certain time of vibrating the parts in that media. It then switches over to a polish, which gives it the high sheen. What this process does is it takes off the microscopic peaks of on the metal surfaces, especially the machine surfaces. It softens those up, it whittles them down, it creates more softness. It keeps refining that process until it gets down. We can get down to a 2RA finish. We can get down pretty slick. Yeah. There's a before and after shot that is showing. So the before ring and pinion has the phosphate coating on it that comes from the manufacturers. The one on the after is obviously after the process is done. There's also on our YouTube channel there's a video that I explain the process probably a little bit better than I am right now.
Right.
But it's a well documented and proven process for reducing stress risers, helping efficiencies, and making a more durable part. And our charge for doing it's $125 for a ring and pinion.
That's a piece of mind there.
Yeah, I mean it's if you've got a $200,000 car belt or a $50,000 car belt, another $125 to make sure your ring and pinion's got that little bit much more.
Be worth it, yeah.
Exactly. Are we answering all of Sid's questions there?
I think you hit a big number.
All right, my ADD kicks in sometimes, and I'll go off.
That ramble.
But I mean, you mentioned a 350 gear is known to be notoriously louder, so you recommend a higher gear.
Yeah, 310's a bad one. Too. I mean, off the top of my head right now, I can't remember some of the particular ones, but
is there a reason why? Have you been able to figure out different things in those ratios that make them louder?
So some of the noise comes from something called transmission error, which is just when the parts are made, they're cut soft on the machine, right?
Mhm.
And then they go to heat treat, and things move in heat treat. So every tooth coming off the machine that might have been machined perfectly, now in heat treat, it's moved a little bit.
Okay.
Most of the aftermarket companies then go to a lapping process, and the lapping process tries to lap them in a little bit and make that less, but it's the difference in the positions of everything as they're spinning. Every gear on the face of the planet makes some sort of noise, right? It's just a mechanical thing, that they're all different frequencies, and they do make all kinds of different noises. So
That's what, like, every Detroit Speed customer calls in thinking maybe they want to run this gear ratio. Obviously, they can run it by us and Buzzy and see, hey, what's going to work best. Be quiet. This is what I'm looking for, and as far as gear ratio and what you want performance wise, and find that happy ratio.
So that actually is a great segue to another question. So we have Chad here, and he wants to know, on the 9-inch center sections, how do you choose between the S, the H, and the HS series? What is the difference between those, and how do you know which is the one that you should put in your build?
Right. So our flagship build is the N series, and that's basically, for the most part, one of our NASCAR, same components as our NASCAR gears, with the exception that the NASCAR gears have a Detroit locker in them, and our street gears we prefer to use the true track.
Yeah.
There's several other differentials we can do that's kind of a custom build, but that N series gear right there has a Ford SVO nodular iron case. Ford had stopped making that particular case a few years ago. We got permission to use the molds. It's going to the same foundry, the same machine shops machining them. So, it's a good old Ford SVO case. We're using the Ford SVO pinion support, Daytona pinion support. So it has the larger back pinion bearing. We're using our NASCAR 1350 billet yoke, which is what's on all of our NASCAR rental gears and all the NASCAR gears we've sold. We're only using ARP hardware. We're only using Timken bearings. So it's a really top quality, nice, solid gear build. The S series is a case that we're buying in from one of our suppliers. It's using an aluminum pinion support and a little bit different pinion yoke. It's basically to help give Detroit Speed and our customers a little bit lower price point option if their budget, they just can't get to the N series. We offer the same options with the rem polishing and the dyno break-in on the S series on any of our Ford 9-inch gears. The HS series, it's all the same components as our N series, except it has the latest Ford SVO investment cast case, which I believe is about 4 pounds lighter. That is what all the Cup teams, and I believe it's also legal in the Xfinity series as well now. It's just a lighter option of the N series. We've also got an oil pump option that we can put on here. So if you're looking for the absolute Mac Daddy lightest with all the latest and greatest as the NASCAR teams are using, it would be the HS series with an oil pump option added to it, an internal oil pump right there. Yeah.
So that's the oil pump.
That's the internal oil pump. Yeah. So what it's doing, it's picking up the oil down there at the bottom out of the case. It's pushing it out through that bulkhead fitting. It then goes to a cooler, and then you run your cooled oil back in. There's a couple places teams are doing it. The vast majority of them are doing it at the back of the housing, spraying it on the top of the ring gear. So that ring gear gets some cooler oil, and then it throws it up into the pinion bearing cavity, cool oil up there. There are a couple of pinion retainer options now that have an oil port that's putting the cold oil, the cool oil right back at the pinion bearings.
So yeah, as you can tell, I mean, you are right when you say the Mac Daddy, because that is as far as those 3 options you named off, this is the more expensive option. Now, if someone wanted to put this gear in a street car, is that something that you would advise as well? Or is this is a strictly racing part? I mean, I know.
No, it'll work fine in a street car. It's just I think the benefits of a pure street car, even if it's a really high end build, if if you're not going to autocross or road race where the unsprung mass is kind of a want that you need, and the oil pump definitely, a road course car.
Yeah.
You'd want that. The oil pump option on the streets probably. It's going to be good when you're hanging out at Good Guys or someplace like that, and you're comparing notes with the guy next to you. It would be pretty good. But for the street, it's probably a bit much.
You get that street cred.
Yeah, street cred. That's right. Yeah.
So here's a really good question: why do NASCAR teams lease third members?
Well, you see behind me, we've got 200 of them, 200 complete third members in inventory, and then we've got just off camera here, we've got our NASCAR 4-speed transmissions. Like the engines that the NASCAR teams have, the driveline components are high dollar components. You've got a lot of inventory costs and a lot of manpower costs to maintain them. When you get into some of the, I don't want to rate teams, but when you get to budget sizes that don't allow you to have a full-time person and maybe have $75,000 worth of inventory of transmissions and rear gears, it's a lot more economical, and it's kind of hands off and I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but you don't even have to worry about it, right? They sign a contract with us. It's on us to provide them the parts that meet the standards for them not to have any issues, and they don't have to worry about it. They can forget about it and go on and worry about their race setup and worry about something else that's within their their control.
Yeah,
so that's
great.
That's where it was driven from originally. As the years have progressed, the large cup teams figured out that they had a lot of used parts and they already had the guys there, so they started offering the same services.
So like you said, a small team. I mean, if you run this gear to track one weekend, next week you got to pull it out, service it. So you're tying up one guy to make sure all that gets done.
Yes.
Whereas you guys, they ship them
it's
out
all on
here,
us.
Yeah, exactly.
You take care of all of it.
Yeah.
So great question there, and a great answer as well. So now you guys know that's why NASCAR teams lease them out. And it's not every NASCAR team, but it is a majority of them. Because, like Fuzzy said, there's hundreds of them here. You can't see them all behind you, but there's a ton. So another question here. This one's from Jeff. Now, it's a little bit of a longer winded
He's got to
question.
be smart with a name like that.
That is true. Jeff's, they're one of a kind, that's for sure. So let's see here. So he's talking about a recent build thread for Stilo's car. And he's mentioned that Ford 9 inches are his nemesis. So he's saying it's due to gear 4 manufacturing or
Ford gear manufacturing.
Yeah, little tongue tied there. But how do you combat poor quality of manufactured 9-inch ring gears? Like, what do you do to make them better? What are some of the flaws that you see, and how do you combat that, and then put out a product that's superior than what you can just get off the shelf somewhere else? So
if you can get a hold of a Ford OE ring and pinion from back in the day, that's going to be your best. From what I understand, there was a lot more QC going on, a lot more matching the gear sets and such. All the aftermarket gear ring and pinion companies, there's a certain price point that the market will withstand. There's certain overhead things and all that, and they're built for durability. And in my opinion, kind of to a price point, I think if I asked any of the large aftermarket ring and pinion companies and told them that I could sell a $600 ring and pinion like the Ford SVO ring and pinions, they were $562, right? The ones that we still have some of them, but the ones that we were running NASCAR, they could afford to put more time and effort into matching and trying to get the noise down on them.
Right.
It is an aftermarket part. It is a mass-produced part. We did work with U.S. Gear on the Stealth Series gear that they have, and we've been getting more and more into those, and those have shown to be quieter than U.S. Gear's standard ring and pinion. So that's one option we've got for people. I feel like I'm getting off the subject a little bit here. Rein me back in, Alex. Rein me back in.
So what do you do here to kind of subside some of those manufacturing imperfections? And, you know, if you are to buy a lower level ring and gear set, what can you do here to make it better?
Okay.
Why Mark Stilo says that this is his nemesis. So what do you guys do to kind of make that easier and make these gears better?
We hand deburr every ring and pinion. Yeah. There's a couple areas on the ring and pinion that we feel helps with that. You know, up on the long part of the tooth. We also deburr down in the edges and stuff too. That's something that we just started doing in race gears. It's to remove stress risers and such. But the other thing that it does is it makes sure that whoever's doing it is physically looking at every tooth. You know, if you pull gear out of the box, you go wash it off. You set up your ring and pinion, and it might not be until you're laying the pattern or trying to do the backlash that you see that there's something on there. The rent process helps as well, and then again, you know, with us throwing it on the dyno and just running it up to try to do it. You know, I realize the guy that's building something at home can't do that.
Right.
So I guess, you know, deburring it, getting it rem finished would be a help. I think one of your other was Sid would asked about oils as well. We recommend running a 75 140.
Okay.
We have seen just with the same gear on our dyno, going from a light oil to a heavy oil helps calm a little bit of that down. It's not a magic bullet, but it does help calm a little bit of it down.
So you want to say that one more time just so everyone can mark that down? What weight do you use?
75 140.
So there you go, 75 140.
Now what about for braking though? Is that different?
The break-in oil that we use is a driven break-in oil, and it's a 7590, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, one of the most common gear oils out there is 7590. You know, if the guy's living in the UP in Michigan,
you can find it.
You know, you only got a few months a year that 75 140 is probably usable before it turns into molasses.
Yeah.
But, for the most part, especially if a guy's autocrossing or, you know, heaven forbid he's street racing or some other, because that's illegal.
Of course,
that's
right.
No one does that.
You know, I'd put the 140 in there just to get the better wear properties.
Yeah.
So when you break in with the 7590, like traditionally, how long should a break-in procedure be?
We recommend about 500 miles.
Okay.
You get a lot of that is you know, you're going to dump that oil out. The break-in process, we've got that lined out on the back of our birth certificate. So if you get a gear from us, you get a birth certificate for that gear. It tells who's built the gear, what parts are in the gear, who checked off on the gear, what if you purchased the dyno. It lets you know what the dyno numbers were. So, and then we keep that in a database. So if you got problems later on, you just give us a serial number. We can go back and check that stuff. Again, I've lost my train of thought.
Well, yeah,
you're supposed to keep me on there.
And that happens for you. But
What in the world was I supposed to be talking about?
To me, it just seems like you guys are just handling every part of the process, start to finish.
Yeah.
So I mean, what better service can you get than that? You know. So,
exactly. Yeah. You don't have to worry about anything. I mean,
you asked about the break-in process.
What's that?
You asked me about the break-in.
You answered it, but.
You
keep
rambling on.
You went off on a little tangent, but that's not a problem at all because, you know, the goal here is we want to give everyone that's in this chat room as much information as possible. So the more information you can throw out there, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, these, you know, webinars, we save them, we put them on YouTube. So this is something where people can go back and reference it forever. So remember,
so you'll be able to go back forever and see how much of a ding dong I've been.
Just maybe.
We got plenty of fun stuff.
Let me go back to the break-in process though. So now that you've got the right oil in there and you're breaking it in, it creates a lot of heat at the surface where the teeth meet together, and that high heat. You want to do short runs of varying speeds and let the gear completely cool down. The high heat on any problem with high heat, it can break down the additive package in a gear, and you want to limit the heat. There's going to be debris and things created when you're doing this break-in process, and at about 500 miles or so, you're going to want to dump that oil out. It helps get all the flush it out, and then put in the oil, your 75 140 oil that you want to run after that.
Perfect. So I have another good question here. This one is from Russ. He is in every single webinar
Yeah.
we do, so thank you for attending, Russ. And he actually sent me an email just before this. He said he met with you. Let me pull up the email. I already forgot. He met with you at PRI in the GearFX booth, and he had
Russ,
asked
I'm
you,
sorry that you had to meet first.
Yeah, that's rough.
So he asked you about the Eaton Quiet Tech ring and pinion set. Do you guys use that here? Do you recommend it? Do you have any more information about it?
That ring and pinion gear set runs almost identical to the US Gear Stealth gear. So
As far as
on manufacturing, quality, and the quietness.
really,
So we had US Gear came down to our facility here with all kinds of ring and pinions, and we set them up in in race gears.
Yeah.
And we set them up. I threaded my guys within an inch of death to make sure that everything, the rolling torques, the backlash, everything was set up to each of those manufacturer's specs,
Right.
and as identical as possible. And we spent 2 days in our dyno cell with US Gear running through all these ring and pinions. So that's, I'm pretty.
the results
Pretty
are
confident.
pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So either you could go either way, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, Russ has another question. Do you use synthetic or petroleum dip oil
With the True Track.
with the True Track?
Yeah.
With the True Track. So I knew we were going to get into oil questions.
Yep.
If you go to our website on our tech section,
Okay.
there's a document. Was it specifically to True Tracks, was he asking?
Yes.
It
Okay.
is specific, yeah.
All right. So for a very, very long time, Eaton's recommendation was to use a mineral-based oil and not a synthetic. The True Tracks and diffs that are like them operate off of the gears internally. They operate off friction. They operate by friction and by the gears spreading apart. So the bias of this, of how this happens, the slicker something is, it's going to change when the True Track locks up, or how it operates. And this document that I'm showing you is a document from Eaton. I believe it came out last year or maybe the year before that does say that you can run a synthetic oil in there. So my personal feeling on mineral-based oils versus synthetic-based oils when people are discussing or debating whether to use one or the other or not, is that the synthetic oils have been developed to have all kinds of better and better properties.
Yeah.
If those better and better properties change the way a particular part operates, and in this case the differential, it's kind of a, which one do you want the benefits for? I would want the benefits of the synthetic oil for the gear life and efficiency and heat reduction and all that,
Right.
even if it changes my bias and my diff a little bit.
Right.
In the case of a guy that's autocrossing, I personally feel he might notice a difference because he's used to his car corner entry and on power. It responds a different way.
Yep.
And if you change to a vastly different oil, you're probably going to notice a difference.
Yep.
I would argue that in the general street operation, I don't think there's I don't think there's going to be much telling, right? So 9 times out of 10 on the street, you're coming up to a corner, you stop and you turn, or you're making a corner. It's not like you're worried about that you're not getting inside tire traction or something like that. So
You don't have that track mentality.
Yeah.
Right. Now I will say that the mineral-based oils tend to work better on the break-in process.
Yeah.
And generally they're less expensive. So since you're going to run 500 miles, you're going to dump it. You're not the expensive or the more expensive synthetic oil that you've probably chosen.
Okay. So another question. This is going back to when we were talking about the Quiet Tech.
Mm-hmm.
When you were referring to US gears, are you referring to the regular one or the stealth?
The stealth
units? Okay. See, that was a question from Jeff. He just wanted to clarify that,
Okay.
just to make sure.
Yeah, the stealth series, what US Gear did is they increased the spiral angle. So the overlap and how the gears wipe in and how they mesh is a little bit better, and that's what helps quiet them down.
Okay.
I can go off on a little sidetrack on that on tooth design. So, in the case of a complete NASCAR design by X-Track or Rave or Gleason, they're going for pure lightweight with the strength. They want all the strength or more strength than standard. They want it to be as light as possible, and they want it to be as efficient as possible. So if you imagine when the pinion and the ring gear teeth are coming in like this, there's a bit of a wiping action as they come in and come out. Well, that sliding adds friction. Friction in racing sense isn't very good. However, the overlap and the sliding is good for reducing a little bit of helping with the noise reduction. In the case of these really high end, and some of these ring and pinions are $4,000 for the ring and pinion set, but they're worth it. There's a reason they're $4,000.
And just to clarify, that's ring and pinion only, not
just the ring and pinion.
Wow.
Here's your box with 2 parts in it. And they, they must be made out of depleted uranium or something.
Hey, whatever.
They're made out, but they work really well.
Sounds like they work.
But on the tooth design of it, they're trying to come in and push on and push off. Come in, push on, push off, because that's the most efficient way to do it. But they are the loudest things you ever heard, because there's that. If you can imagine, there's that. It's almost like a ticking. It's almost, you just keep speeding that ticking up, and it turns into a whine, where something that slides in, pushes off, slides out, is going to be quiet.
Perfect. I like these little tangents you go on.
My whole life's one big tangent.
So we're gonna go back now.
If nothing else, I'm trying to
break it.
Yeah.
When you flush out the fluid, what's the best way to do it? Do you need to put a little bit of new stuff in, let it drain out, and get it completely out?
I wouldn't worry about it. I would do it while it's still warm. I'd go, go drive it, let it, make sure everything's churned up really good and it's hot, and I pull it in. And by the time you get it up on a lift or you get up on the jack stands and it's cooled down enough to where you're not going to melt your fingertips off, everything that you need to come out at that point.
So don't do it cold.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that should answer that from there. Here's one. We're gonna pick your brain right here. Okay. So Stanley, he has a BorgWarner T10 and a '63 Corvette. He said it only whines in 3rd gear. 1st, 2nd, and 4th have no noise. It was rebuilt by a private party, and it only has about 400 miles on it. Aside from the whine, it shifts with no difficulty, and it was built with stock components. If it accelerates in 3rd gear, it's not as loud. What do you think would cause that whine?
I would say there's an imperfection, most likely an imperfection on either the countershaft cluster on that gear or the gear up top. If they've only put in the 3rd gear main shaft gear and didn't replace the cluster, and you got a used set of gears on the bottom, sometimes that can cause a problem. So if he might be able to verify it, but if first and 2nd gear and 4th gear were all used, and the cluster shaft was used, they've all run together all their life. Now you're putting a brand new 3rd gear in there that's pristine. There's going to be there's just going to be a little bit of a wear difference in there that could cause it. I'll tell you one thing that I always miss pointing out, that I like to point out, is at GearFX, there's 4 of us that have been here. We've been here for more than 12 years working together. So from 2005, when Rob Nipp, the shop foreman, and myself were in here. We also have Sam Goodman now and Johnny Turner. And I don't know how we haven't killed each other, but we've been here ever since that time together. Rob, I'm the face, right? I'm the face and trying to do what I can to drive sales. Like there's a question.
Yeah.
But Rob Nipp and Sam and Johnny, those guys know their stuff. They're the guys that got their hands in it every day. I mean, I can come out here. They usually don't like me coming out here because move stuff around.
Start doing your
Yeah, I
tangents.
mean, I can build the transmissions and get my way through a gear and stuff like that, but those guys are really the ones to do it. And Rob Nip would be the one to call in and ask, because he can quote T10 part numbers off the top of his head, and he's just one of those guys. He knows his stuff like that. So he would be better to answer that than I am. I'm giving you my phone number. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a phone number, wouldn't it?
It definitely would.
You can go to our website, right? GearFXDriveline.com. We got a lot of information there, but we also, phone number at the shop is 704-799-0955.
There you go. And you can talk
And
to this
you can
guy.
subscribe to their newsletter that's also down there at the bottom. So anytime they have any new products or any new services or anything cool going on, they'll send that out to you as well.
Yeah. And our YouTube channel.
Yes, YouTube as well. And there's an address there too. So if you want to send Fuzzy a love letter, we get mail as well.
Yes. Just make sure love letter is not ticking.
Well,
What else we got?
You gotta
Are
think,
we
though,
burning
I mean,
up time here?
All
right.
We got time.
15 minutes. We set so much time. So many things we can talk about. Let's talk a little bit about GearFX and Detroit Speed products together.
There you go.
Things that you do for us. So a common question that the guys get in the sales room, what's the difference between a C6 and a C7 floater? Or before you start that, you can even say what a floater is.
Oh yeah, there you go. Start there.
Floater. Yeah, I think there were some axle questions in there too,
Yep.
as far as flanged axle, floater axle, and a standard
Yeah, the
axle,
types
which
and the
is
differences,
a C, which I think they're referring to a C-clip style.
Yes,
Yeah,
let's hit that first then.
Okay, so in the case of a Ford 9-inch, you can't have a C-clip. At least that I'm aware of. I don't know how that would work. Most of the time on the outboard end, it's what's called a Torino flange, which was from the Ford Torino. It's a size of bearing, and it's a flanged axle where the bearing is pressed onto the axle, and then there's a clip that holds the axle in the housing.
Do you have axles here?
There is one. There should be some somewhere. I can't point you in that.
Okay, you talk.
Okay, all right. In the case of a floater axle, you have a snout on the end of the housing, and a hub assembling. The bearings and hub and everything go on that snout, and that's what's supporting the weight of the car. And then the axle itself is just splined into the rear gear and splined on the outside, and it can be slid in and out without affecting anything that has to do with the car being on the wheels and tires.
Yeah, so it's not a flanged axle like your Torino style would be. It's just a straight shaft, splines on both ends.
Right. In the case of the Detroit Speed stuff, it's really cool.
This looks dangerous right here.
Yeah, this is a floater axle.
Yep.
So it's got the splines on.
Look,
It's got the splines
Where's my
on
hard
both
hat?
end. So this is the inboard end. This is a 35 spline on this particular one, and it's a 33 spline on this end for a Detroit Speed C6 or C7 kit.
the hub pack end.
The hub pack end,
Yep.
right? So in the case of the C6 and the C7, the actual hub pack itself is.
Well, yeah.
You're better.
Yeah,
than going to this
so
than me.
the C6, it's our most popular between the two, but it does, they both have ABS capabilities. So the C6 hub pack has that pigtail on it. And of course, if you want to use your parking brake, you're going to take the GM C6 parking brake and adapt it into our kit. So it's a good kit. I've been able to work with both of them. In my opinion, I really like the C7 kit better. I think it's a better, there's less to install. It's easier to do. The parking brake assembly is much more modern than the C6 version. It's just not as clumsy, I'll say, in the park brake, the way it works. So there's less steps to install the C7. Now, the problem is, obviously, there's a lot more C6 brakes available right now. C7 will get there, of course, but to me, the C7 kit's the one to pick from. But again, a lot of people have.
There's a wheel speed difference too, correct?
Yeah, well,
sensor difference.
Yeah, so the way the ABS works, the C6 has a pigtail on it with a connector, and the C7 uses more of like a sensor that plugs into one of our little spacer blocks that mounts to the spacer, the main spacer. And again, if you don't want to run ABS, you don't use a sensor. We give you a plug to plug in the hole. And same thing with parking brake. If you don't want to run a parking brake, we give you a shim to go in place that backing plate. So they're both great kits. They both sell good. I think as we move on here with different brake packages that are available, the C7 I would think would be the more popular kit. To me, it's a nicer, more modern assembly, especially with parking brake. That's kind of the biggest difference between the two.
Yeah.
So both basically hub packs are pretty much the same, other than that ABS pigtail. So
one of the good things about a floater setup versus a flanged axle in an autocross racing
yes.
environment is that a flanged axle, which I'll show you here, Alex has found one somewhere, doorstop somewhere or something.
It was sitting on the shelf over
But
there.
that you can get a little bit of flex between where the axle's coming out and the flange is here,
right.
but the axle is supported here on the bearing. You can, when you corner, you can get a little bit of flex like this. And what that does, since your rotor's pushing back and forth, it can push your brake pads back. So that first time going into a corner,
Yeah.
you're going to have a little bit of a soft pedal until you get the second.
You get that brake
third bump in.
knockback that you hear about. That's
Right.
not favorable.
So going to a floater setup will
Yeah.
get rid of that completely.
See, now me, some of you guys know I did a lot of drag racing growing up. So to me, our race cars always had floaters, because if you had a flanged axle and the flanged axle broke, you're in the wall.
Bye wheel.
Right? So the whole car's, the wheel comes out of the car, you crash, no good. Floaters, if you break an axle, you can keep going straight. You know, I mean, the wheel's not going to fall off. So
Yeah.
it's a safety thing. Sure, it was a little bit heavier, but the cars that we ran had to be a certain weight and heavier than other combinations, so it didn't matter too much for us.
And
The safety thing was huge, because you don't want to wreck a $100,000 race car, and for a flanged axle that could break.
It's dropping a bucket for you.
No, no.
Yeah, but plus in the case of a Ford 9-inch, pulling the axles out to change your third member if you're changing ratios. In the case of drag racing guys, if the weather changes a little bit or the track changes, you're going to change ratios at the track. So if you've got a flanged axle, you got to involve your brakes, you got to involve all this other stuff and pull those axles out. Floater axle, you just slide the axles out and get with it.
You and Kyle, when we went to VIR last year, you guys swapped out the center section in that car in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
In the rain.
In the rain.
With a hot car.
Yep.
That was the most fun I've had in a long time.
I bet it was.
Get out from behind the laptop and go change the gear.
Yeah, I mean, the full floater definitely makes that way easier. Before you show more examples of a flanged axle, we have a question from Jeff again. So Dan, he wants to know, will C7 front brakes fit on our spindle? He doesn't want to have a C7 floater and then get stuck with a C6 front brake setup. So he could kind of
that does make sense. If you're running one of our front frames or subframe with a hub pack, that does make sense, because the C7 mounting is much different than the C6 caliper. So our upright really that we have on our subframe and other frames is for C6 brake size bolt span. So in that case, you would, if you did a C7 floater and our subframe, you wouldn't be able to have the same brakes front and back. So that is a good point.
he's trying to make an effort to have them all match and possibly use the ABS with it as well.
That does make sense.
So let's do this. Jeff, if you'd like, you can go ahead and reach out to us and we can get you in touch with Dan, and we can kind of talk about your project a little more and see if we have a better solution for you. Perfect. So, Fuzzy.
Flanged axle.
Oh, yeah.
Alex happened to grab one out of a 2000 and this is out of a Silverado actually. So you can see obviously you've got the flange here.
Yep.
This isn't a Torino style where it has a bearing pressed here. The housing has needle bearings that right here. Well, the only thing, if you got needle bearings right here, the only thing that's going to keep all this in is the C clips, which are at this end of things.
There you go. Yeah, that's a heavy end.
There's a transmission right there. So C clip goes in this. So you have to pull the rear, right, there's a groove right there. C clip goes in. This is inside your diff, and the axle gear's right here. C clip goes in, and that's what retains this in the vehicle.
So if you ever had to, change an axle, you're gonna have to take that diff cover off. There's just extra steps. Whereas a Ford 9-inch is it's so much easier, especially if a Ford 9-inch with a floater.
Yeah.
So speaking of Ford 9-inch, another thing people want to know is, what is a Torino flange axle? So what's the what's the difference between Torino flange compared to, our C6, C7? What is a Torino?
Well, that's more your conventional. I mean, it's a newer style. I mean, obviously GM had their older style, big bearing, small bearing Ford stuff. Yeah, all
There's
that.
several bearing.
The Torino's kind of been the industry standard here lately, doing that with a flanged axle. So that's
It's the most common.
Yeah.
It's got a 2.5 inch brake back spacing on it, which, every aftermarket brake manufacturer has a kit to do that. It's, it's retained out here at the end. You don't have to worry about.
So essentially, it's just the industry standard, axle.
Right. If people are doing a particular car and they want to maintain maybe the drum brake package or something that's on that, we can get with one of our suppliers and get an end that is the same as the OE end. There's Buick stuff and Ultra and GM.
BPO and
Right. There's all kinds of, but it's just that the Torino style has been the lion's share.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but if you were building a muscle car in 2020, I would certainly lean towards that floater design.
Yeah.
That's just a
That's
better.
slowly becoming the industry standard.
It is. I say,
especially within the racing industry. And,
Yeah.
Guys that are building autocross and street cars. Plus, you can also talk about maybe the dangers of having a flanged axle compared to a floater. What happens if a flanged axle breaks?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were mentioning with the racing.
I think he was on the axle.
Yeah, you were hunting for that one. Yeah.
We've checked that box.
We did.
All right. You checked that box.
But important point.
It is a very important point. So this would be a quick answer. I'll go ahead and do it for you. Jeff had just asked, do you guys work on different transmissions or just NASCAR? So yes, they work on T56.
We don't do any automatic.
No automatics?
No automatics.
Okay. Perfect. So there you go. Manual transmissions. Any of your needs, go ahead and call GearFX. So another quick question Russ has. Do you make your own axles? Are they heat treated? What do you do, or where do you source axles?
Currently, we aren't at the point to where we make our own axles. We have a couple of very good suppliers that we use, and I believe. Well, I'm not going to talk out of turn since I don't know for sure on the alloy that's used, but it's a very high quality axle from name brand companies, name brand suppliers.
And do they heat treat them?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the benefit of heat treating an axle? Strength?
Well, yeah, it's strength. And your splines need to be heat treated. I don't think the splines will last very long.
No.
Soft.
Yep.
So another question here from Scott Kramer. He wants to know, how come wave track differential didn't become popular? Are they good or are they bad?
I think they're better now. I believe they went through a spell there where they might have had some issues going on, and we've installed some wave tracks, and none of those have come back. If somebody wants a wave track, we'll put a wave track in. We're also an OS Takin dealer, which is that can be a whole nother subject. That's a really good high-end racing differential. True Track just seems to be the lion's share of what we do, but we can get wave tracks. That's what we've installed in the C5 Corvette diffs that we've done.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
It's not a bad product.
So we're going to do two more questions.
Okay.
I have two down here. The first one is, how do you determine what ratio is in your car without taking it apart?
Well, you can. It's kind of old school.
Yeah. No, I know.
But,
I know this one.
but you can make a mark on your tire and watch your pinion. Get your pinion yoke set to where you can see it's going to be somewhere, and put a mark on it that you can see. Put a mark on your tire. Turn your tire once and count how many times your pinion yoke turns, and that'll get you. It'll turn 3.5 times.
It's a 350.
It's a 350. Right. It might be a 355 or 345, but it's gonna get you in the window. It's not a 411.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's definitely not a 411 if it goes 3.5 times.
Yeah.
Perfect. Quick and dirty. So we're going to end this webinar on one question regarding Fox body. We seem to always been ending all of these with Fox body, since we are getting closer to Fox body product release. So with Fox body coming, is there a plan for GearFX to do an 8.8 rear, or will you do an 8.8 rear?
An 8.8 replacement rear, or a Ford 9-inch to go in an 8.8?
That sounds good too.
I would.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the answer to the other
Yeah.
question, if you guys are getting more questions about it, and you're getting more requests for
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
GearFX needs to get on the stick
right,
and come up with something for it.
yes.
That's the first thing to answer.
So, I mean, the Fox bodies are obviously growing in popularity, and many people are building them. So, what is the best way for GearFX to accommodate that? Would you build an 8.8 in a Fox body? Would you swap a 9-inch into it? Are there features and benefits that are great in the 8.8 that you should keep that, or kind of what are your
Well,
thoughts?
I would say that the 9-inch is going to be more. It's going to be
Beefier.
more. It's going to be beefier. It's going to be stronger.
That's my word.
It's going to be easier to change between ratios if a person wanted to do that.
Yeah, more commonality.
I mean,
parts,
the
yeah.
8.8s, there's guys putting some big horsepower
Yeah.
to 8.8s on, drag radials
Slicks,
and
yep.
stuff.
Mhm.
So, it's not that it's not worth doing, but, you got to build that ring and pinion set in the housing. So I think there's a little bit of a convenience there that you're losing. If you're not thinking you're ever going to change your ring and pinion ratio, you probably stay with the
Yeah.
8.8. So, GearFX needs to get with the engineering staff at Detroit Speed.
Oh, sorry.
And we need to come up with something and do it. If people are asking for it, we got to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy for me to get my head
Well, that's
stuck
what's
somewhere and not.
great about our sales guys. Anytime they get feedback from our customers or future customers, we can translate that through engineering to fuzzy and back and forth with the sister companies and make a better product and make what you want.
Absolutely. Cool. So, turn mine on. There I am. Okay. So pretty much,
Is this what people are saying?
what?
Is this what people are seeing right here?
Yeah,
Right now, at the
people are
moment.
saying.
We're down here.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
people have been seeing the whole time.
All right.
So thank you guys for joining us for episode 5 of Taking a Break with Detroit Speed. If you guys have any questions about GearFX, Fuzzy, any of the products that they offer, go on their website. It's GearFX Driveline. And give them a call if you have questions, shoot them an email, subscribe to their newsletter. They're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, as well as us. So they're all over the place. And if you have any in-depth questions about your build or products that you need, go ahead and give them a call, shoot them an email, hit them a comment, slide into Fuzzy's DMs, and that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you next time. And it's going to be a really good episode for 006, so stay tuned for that announcement. We'll see you guys later.